I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to have my world turned upside down like this, but here I am, trying to piece the mess back together, or maybe just trying to find a way to burn it all down. I was supposed to get married next weekend. Everything felt right, or at least normal enough to ignore that nagging feeling in my gut. Yeah, I know, I should paid attention. But love, or whatever it was I thought I had, made me blind. Her name was Lisa. We met in college, both of us trying to carve out something real in this messy, unpredictable world. She was beautiful, long dark hair, sharp eyes that always seemed to see through me, and a smile that could make even the worst day seem manageable. I thought she was the one. We'd been together for 5 years straight, and I believed we had a future planned out, kids, a house, the usual picture of happiness. Until that night. It still burned into my memory like a bad scar. I was supposed to be working late, but something wasn't sitting right. I'd gotten home earlier than expected, and the house was eerily silent. Usually she'd be waiting in the living room, scrolling through her phone or cooking something. But this time the place was dead quiet. No smell of dinner, no music, no Lisa. I called her name, no answer. That's when I noticed her purse on the couch, open and knocked over. My stomach clenched tight. I moved toward the bedroom. Something felt wrong, like I was walking into a nightmare. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and saw her lying there, tangled in the sheets, her face flushed, her breathing uneven. Then I saw him, my best friend Jake, just a few feet away from her, half naked, his shirt discarded on the floor, his eyes wide like a kid caught stealing candy. And Lisa, she looked caught too. It all happened so fast, but the shock hit me like a punch to the gut, knocking the air out of me. The bed was a mess with sheets pulled down, her clothes scattered around. The scent hit me hard, an odd mix of sweat and perfume, but it was the evidence I needed. The way she looked at me, her eyes wide and guilty, made it clear she knew I'd caught her. It wasn't just a mistake. Not a drunken stumble. This was planned, intentional. She'd been lying, sneaking around behind my back for weeks, maybe months. Jake looked like he wanted to vanish into thin air. "Man," he finally said, his voice trembling. I didn't mean for this to happen." Lisa's voice was shaky too. "It's not what you think. It was just a moment, I swear." But I didn't listen. My stomach was churning, my palms slick with sweat. All I could see was the betrayal, the deep cut to my trust, and the gut-wrenching realization that everything I believed in was a lie. They were in my bed, my most private space, trading something I can't even name. I didn't say a word. I just turned, walking out of the room, the weight of it all pressing down on me like a stone. I stayed in the living room, staring at the ceiling, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. My mind kept replaying what I'd seen, the betrayal, the look in her eyes, the smell of their bodies together. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Instead, I kept wandering back to that scene, trying to understand how I missed the signs, how. I never saw it coming. I thought I knew her, but I was so wrong. That night I learned that love can be a lie, and loyalty. It's just a word until someone's willing to betray it. Now I'm left with a sinking feeling in my chest and a question that won't go away. How do I move forward when everything I thought was real has turned to ash? The next morning was a blur. I woke up early, my head pounding like a drum, the taste of alcohol and heartbreak still sticky in my mouth. I couldn't shake the image of her in our bed, and Jake's face, so damn guilty, haunted me as I sat on the edge of the bed. It was like I'd been hit by a truck, but worse, because this wasn't some bad dream. It was real. I got up, fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached. I needed answers, but I also knew I couldn't just walk into that room and pretend everything was fine. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I told myself I needed to think this through, not just react. I wasn't going to lose my mind over this, at least. That's what I kept telling myself. I grabbed my phone, hesitating before dialing. It was tempting to call her, to demand she tell me what the hell she thought she was doing. But I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I pulled out a little notebook I kept for random thoughts and started writing. I needed to get a grip, and I needed to plan. I didn't want to believe anyone else knew, so I decided to check her phone. Honestly, it felt like a betrayal of my own, but I couldn't afford to be naive anymore. I unlocked her device, the cold screen illuminating my face as I scrolled through her messages. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to look. That's when I saw it, the text messages from Jake. Not just a few flirtatious comments, but detailed plans, secret meetups, and a lot of code words that now made sense. The "we need to be careful" messages, the "can't wait to see you tonight" stuff. It was all there, laid out like a map of their betrayal. My stomach twisted painfully, my throat tightening. How long had this been going on? I closed her phone, feeling sick. The evidence was undeniable. I wasn't imagining things. They'd been sneaking around, lying right under my nose. It all felt like a bad joke, one I didn't want to be the punchline of. I couldn't believe I missed these signs, her distant attitude, the late nights, the unexplained absences. All of it was there, hiding in plain sight. I knew one thing: I couldn't let her get away with this. Not without a serious response. I needed to get even. Not in a childish way, but smart, calculated. That's when I started plotting. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, I needed to gather more proof, more leverage. I had to make her see that I knew everything, that I wasn't some clueless fool. I remembered a detail I'd overlooked: the delivery she'd received last week. It was a small package, no label, handed to her by a courier late at night. I thought it was just a gift or something for her birthday. Now I was sure it was something else. I snuck into her closet while she was out, found a box hidden behind some clothes. Inside, there was a tiny recording device, obviously placed there to listen in on her conversations or track her movements. My stomach sank again. This was serious. She'd been spying on me, on us. I felt the rage bubbling up. How dare she betray me and then try to spy on me too? I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was a full-blown attack on everything I believed in. I knew what I had to do next. I had the proof. Now I needed a way to make her feel as betrayed as I did. I wanted her to understand the extent of what she'd done, to see that I was serious about revenge. The game was on. I wasn't just going to walk away. No, I was going to make her regret every second of her betrayal. I sat there in the dim light of the apartment, feeling the weight of the betrayal settle in my chest. The betrayal of my trust, my love, my loyalty. It was a wound that wouldn't close, no matter how hard I tried. But I'd be damned if I let her get away with it. Pay. She'd see that I played the same game and I'd come out on top. Now I just had to decide how. By the time afternoon rolled around, I made my decision. I wasn't just going to confront her blindly, throwing accusations and risking chaos. No, I needed a plan, a way to hit her where it hurt without turning into a lunatic. I wanted her to see I'd been holding everything in, that I was serious about this. First, I pulled out the recording device from her closet. Listening to her voice, sweet, seductive, and so damn manipulative, made my blood boil. She'd been talking to Jake, planning their meetups, laughing at my expense. It was raw, real evidence, and I knew I had to use it carefully. I needed her to understand I played this game smart. I also took screenshots of her secret messages. That, combined with the recording, formed a solid package of proof. I was going to make sure she couldn't deny anything. She'd be forced to face her lies. I wanted her to realize I wasn't some naive fool anymore. While I was gathering everything, my mind kept racing. What was her next move? Had she thought I wouldn't find out? Did she think I'd never catch her? The thought of her lying in our bed, betraying everything we built, made my stomach twist. I clenched my fists, feeling the heat rise up in my chest. I decided I needed to talk to Jake directly, not to fight, but to get everything on the table. I texted him, telling him I knew everything and that we needed to meet. I didn't want any misunderstandings. I wanted him to understand just how deep the betrayal went. I wasn't going to be the fool who got played. He messaged back almost immediately. "Yeah, I know, I messed up. But I swear I didn't mean for this to get so out of hand." His words felt hollow, like he was trying to salvage what little dignity he had left. I didn't care about his excuses. I just wanted him to know I was serious. The plan was simple. I was going to confront Lisa tonight, but with everything I'd gathered. I'd play the recordings, show her the messages, let her know I knew she'd been lying and sneaking around behind my back. I wanted her to see that I was prepared, that her deception wouldn't just slide. I wasn't about to lose everything I'd worked for over a woman who thought she could get away with cheating. As the evening crept in, I set up my laptop to play the recordings loud enough for her to hear. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to see that I was serious about making her understand she'd crossed a line. I kept my phone close, ready to record her reactions. When she finally came home, her face was tense, like she knew she was caught but wasn't ready to admit it. She tried to act normal, but I could see her eyes flickering nervously. The air thickened with the weight of everything unspoken. I sat her down, my voice cold and steady. "Lisa, I need to talk. I found some things out today, things I wish I didn't have to see. I have proof that you've been lying to me, and I want to know why." Her face went pale, but she tried to brush it off. "It's not what you think, it was just a mistake. I swear," I cut her off. "No, Lisa, it's exactly what I think. You've been sneaking around behind my back, lying to me for weeks. I have your messages, and I have this." I pressed play on my laptop, and her voice floated out, seductive and guilty, telling Jake what he means to you. Her hands trembled as she looked at the screen. I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered, but her voice sounded hollow. "Too late for that," I said. "You can't spin your way out of this. I'm done." I didn't yell. I just let her see that I'd won this round. I watched her unravel, her facade cracking, and I felt the cold satisfaction of knowing I had the upper hand now. The fallout was immediate. She tried to deny everything, but the evidence drowned her out. I told her she had a choice: own up to what she did or walk away. Either way, I'd be done. No more lies, no more betrayal. It was over. As she packed her things that night, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't relief exactly. It was a mix of anger, pain, and a strange sense of liberation. I realized I'd been holding onto this fantasy that love was enough, that loyalty mattered. But I learned the hard way that some betrayals are too deep to mend. When she left, I handed her the keys to the apartment. "Take whatever you want, I don't want to see you again." I watched her walk out, heart pounding, and knew one thing: I'd never trust so easily again. The next few days felt like I was living in a fog. Every time I closed my eyes, scenes replayed: her face, the look in Jake's eyes, the way everything crumbled in that moment. I kept telling myself I'd come out of this stronger, but truthfully, I felt hollow. Betrayal does that to you, leaves a scar you can't ignore. I spent most of my time cleaning out her things, throwing away the clothes, the mementos, anything that tied her to this apartment. It was like ripping off a band-aid, painful but necessary. I wanted to reclaim my space, my head, my life. Each item I packed seemed to sting more. I kept thinking about all the nights I'd spent dreaming about our future, only to realize that I'd been living with a lie. I didn't contact many friends. I didn't want anyone questioning me, doubting my judgment. Instead, I kept to myself, sorting through the wreckage in my mind. My stomach clenched every time I remembered how perfect everything seemed just a week ago: the wedding planning, the vows, the anticipation. Now that's all dead, gone, and I wondered how I'd rebuild trust if I ever could. One thing I did do was reach out to Jake. It was time to get some clarity, even if I already knew the answer. I texted him late that evening, my fingers trembling a little. "We need to talk, face to face." When he responded, I suggested we meet in a neutral place, somewhere quiet, away from the chaos of our homes. No excuses, no hiding. The meeting was set for the next afternoon. I arrived early, my mind racing, heart pounding like I was about to face a trial. When Jake showed up, he looked guilty, like a kid caught stealing again. I didn't waste any time. So I started, voice low and steady. "You knew about everything, didn't you?" He swallowed hard, eyes flickering. "Yeah, I knew. I didn't want to hurt you, man. I swear I didn't think it'd get this bad." "Bad?" I shot back. "You think betraying your best friend, your wife, and risking everything is bad? You lied, you cheated, didn't even have the guts to tell me you were screwing around. Do you even feel guilty?" He looked down, rubbing his neck nervously. "I messed up bad. I was stupid, both of us. I didn't want to ruin everything, but I guess I already did." I let his words hang, then took a deep breath. "Here's the deal. I'm not interested in your excuses. I know what you did, and I know she knew about it too. You both broke me. And I don't want to see you again, not as a friend, not as anything. You crossed a line I never thought could be crossed." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I get it, I really do. I wish I'd never started this. I'm sorry, man. Sorry doesn't fix what they did. Sorry doesn't rebuild the trust I lost." But I let him say his piece. I needed that closure, even if it was bitter. I told him to stay away from her, that I'd handle things my way now. That was the end of that chapter. Walking away from the meeting, I felt a strange sense of calm mixed with rage. I'd confronted them both, laid everything bare. Now I was finally free to focus on healing, or whatever that meant. The physical act of ending that chapter was what I needed most, handing over the keys to her apartment, locking her out of my mind, my life. I was ready to move forward, but part of me knew I'd be carrying this hurt for a long time. Trust isn't so easily restored, and love, well, it's a fragile thing, easily shattered. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd thrown it away. That betrayal changed me, and I wasn't sure I'd ever look at love the same way again. But I did know one thing: I'd rather be alone than live in a lie. And that, for now, was enough. The days that followed felt like they dragged on forever, each one a strange mix of numbness and clarity. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the ghost of her memory, but it was a losing battle. Every time I sat still, her face would flash in my mind, and the ache in my chest would swell again. I knew I had to do something, anything, to reclaim myself from what felt like a slow unraveling. One night, sitting on my balcony, I stared at the city skyline, the distant hum of traffic a dull background. I felt hollow, yet oddly relieved. I'd taken the steps I needed, confronted her, gathered the evidence, cut ties with Jake. But this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding what was left of my sense of trust, of self. I needed closure, and I decided I'd give it to myself on my terms. I remembered something she said once, something she dismissed as a joke during happier times. If you think you're the only one who can change your life, you're wrong. Yeah, right. I'd always believed in love and loyalty, but she'd shown me that sometimes love is just an illusion we cling to for dear life. Loyalty. It's a word that's easy to misuse when it suits you. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her mess with my head anymore. No more crying, no more obsessing over what went wrong. I was going to take control. The first step was to cut off the last remnants of her presence. I went online and canceled every subscription, changed my passwords, deleted her number from my phone, and blocked her on social media. It was petty, maybe, but it was what I needed to do to reclaim my peace. Then I started thinking about what I really wanted. Revenge, sure, that burning need to make her feel even a fraction of what I did. But more than that, I wanted to make her see she had lost something real. I wanted her to know what betrayal costs, so I devised a plan. I'd send her a letter. No, not an angry, blame-shifting rant. Something cold, calculated, and final. The letter was simple. No emotions, no accusations, just the truth laid bare. I wrote about what I'd discovered, how her betrayal shattered everything. I told her I'd moved on, that I'd learned to trust myself again. I mentioned I'd kept the evidence, just in case she ever thought she could lie her way out of what she did. I signed it with a single sentence: "You lost me forever." I didn't send it immediately. I wanted the right moment, something symbolic. After a few days, I found myself standing outside her new apartment, a plain envelope in my hand. I approached her door slowly, heart pounding. I hesitated, then slid the letter through the mail slot. I watched as it disappeared into her mailbox, knowing she'd read it soon enough. That was the last piece of her I would give her. It felt good, in a way, like finally closing a chapter I never wanted to reopen. The aftermath was strange. I felt lighter, like I'd taken back some control I'd lost. I didn't reach out to her anymore. I didn't even think about what she was doing. I focused on myself, rebuilding routines, reconnecting with friends I'd pushed away, and figuring out what happiness looked like without her in the picture. It was hard, but necessary. One evening, I sat in a coffee shop, watching couples walk by, holding hands, laughing, living their lives. I realized that, for once, I was just observing, not aching. I'd been through hell, yes, but I was still standing. I might never fully trust again, but I was learning how to protect myself. Love might be a gamble, but sometimes the safest bet is just betting on yourself. Looking back, I see how naive I was, how I thought loyalty was enough. Now, I understand that love isn't a guarantee, and betrayal can come from anywhere. But I also know that I can survive it. I will survive it. And someday, maybe, I'll be able to trust again. Until then, I'll keep walking my own path, bit by bit, step by step, and hope that in the end I come out stronger. The weeks after that night blurred into a strange sort of calm. I kept busy, throwing myself into work and trying to forget the sting of everything I'd lost. But beneath the surface, there was a quiet sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. I'd finally taken control of my life again, even if it was a slow process. No more lingering doubts, no more second-guessing myself. I had confronted the betrayal head-on and I'd come out the other side. One day, I found myself walking through a park, just watching the world go by. People were laughing, kids were playing, and I thought about all the moments I'd missed because I'd been so focused on her. I realized that, despite everything, I still believed in love, just not the kind I'd thought was supposed to be forever. I understood now that trust is fragile, and loyalty isn't something you can take for granted. It has to be earned every day. I sat on a bench and took in the warmth of the sun on my skin, feeling the breeze ruffle my hair. It was a simple moment, but it felt like liberation. I wasn't carrying her betrayal anymore, not in my heart, not in my mind. That weight had finally lifted. I looked around and saw strangers, some happy, some just living their lives. It made me wonder, how many people out there are hiding their pain behind smiles? How many are pretending everything's okay when it's not? That's when I realized I had a choice. I could let this ruin me, make me bitter, paranoid, closed off. Or I could learn from it, grow stronger, and decide what I wanted moving forward. I chose the latter. I knew I'd be cautious, maybe forever, but I also knew I wouldn't let her betrayal define me. I'd become someone who understood the importance of honesty, loyalty, and self-respect. In the end, I handed over the last of her belongings, closed the door on that chapter, and stepped into the unknown. It wasn't easy. Hell, it never is. But I knew I had to keep moving. Not for her, not for Jake, but for myself. To reclaim my happiness, my peace, my sense of self. Looking back, I see how far I've come. I learned that love isn't just about finding the right person. It's about protecting your boundaries and trusting yourself first. And that sometimes, the most important thing you can do is walk away from what destroys you, without looking back. So here's my advice. If you're standing where I was, feeling betrayed and broken, remember, your worth isn't determined by someone else's betrayal. You're stronger than you think. Trust takes time, and loyalty is a gift you give carefully. But most of all, never forget that the greatest revenge isn't anger or revenge itself. It's living well after everything falls apart. It's finding your peace, piece by piece, until one day you realize you're finally free.